Second.
Director Malloy.
Aye.
Director Mishler.
Aye.
Director Kelly.
Aye.
Director Dixon.
Aye.
Chair Magner.
Aye. Okay, we will have 5 presentations. Oh,
We do?
Number 5 presentation.
number 5.
Number 5 presentation. Now you know how.
Staff sweating it out. Where's the other 4 coming from?
It was a short night last night, and it's been a long day, so I apologize. Connor, welcome again.
Thank you. Very excited today to be able to talk to you about all of our Christmas events that happened in December. So specifically, we're going to talk a lot about a lot of things, but the Christmas parade will be highlighted mainly. I want to start with our Letters to Santa campaign that took off on December 1st and ran through December 12th. Santa had 227 letters accepted as part of this campaign. Children were invited to stop by the admin office to drop their letters in this very special red mailbox that you can see in the bottom left corner there. And we want to make sure we thank the Southwest Regional Council of Carpenters for building Santa's mailbox, and you can see the unfinished version up in the top right corner. Moving right along into Breakfast with Santa on Saturday, December 7th, Santa met with 188 good boys and girls for a breakfast of pancakes with toppings, sausage, and assorted beverages. Santa also accepted 48 letters to Santa during this event. And as always, we want to thank our community partners for this. Moose Lodge 2047, who cooked all the food for us, which was wonderful. Odile Yeravanian, one of our contracted instructors, who provided all the entertainment. And Southwest Regional Council of Carpenters, who again built the mailbox that we got to put all of our letters to Santa into. And the Ugly Sweater 5K and Donut Dash, the precursor to the Christmas parade on Saturday, December 14th, had 115 total participants, which was great. We want to make sure we thank our community partners for their support on this one. Of course, the Foundation for PVRPD, Rolling Pin Donuts for providing all those delicious donuts, Montecito Bank and Trust, and Grocery Outlet. And last but not least, the Camarillo Christmas Parade, also Saturday, December 14th, with 93 parade entries and 56 partners for the Santa's Village event here at the Community Center. Our Grand Marshals, astronaut Jim Kelly and rocket scientist Julie Zingerman were featured in that event. And we had an estimated 8,000 plus attendees. And just to give you a better visual idea of what we did during that event, featuring our 30-foot tall astronaut there in the center for you to see, and of course all the wonderful entries in the parade. And of course we couldn't have done any of this without our wonderful community partners. As you can see, there's quite a few. I won't go through all of them, but without their support, we couldn't do all the wonderful things associated with the Christmas parade that we're able to do, so we want to thank them very much. And if there are any questions?
No.
Okay. Thank you, Connor. Public comments? Do we have any yellow cards? Okay. 7, consent agenda. Is there a motion for the consent agenda, or are there any changes to it?
So moved.
Second.
Director Malloy.
Aye.
Director Mishler.
Aye.
Director Kelly.
Aye.
Director Dixon.
Aye.
Chair Magner.
Aye. Okay. 8, new items. Consideration of the FY 2018 and 19 annual financial report as prepared by Moss, Levy, Hartzheim, LLP, CPAs. Leo?
Chairperson Magner, members of the board, tonight I'm going to present to you the fiscal year 18-19 financials. And to my right, I have Travis Hull, our CPA, if you have any questions during this or after the presentation. Every year, the district conducts a financial audit to ensure the effective operations of the district. The audit improves our accountability, the ethics and professional practices, the effective risk management, the quality of our output, and the supports the decisions that we make during the fiscal year. A little bit of background on the audit. This is again for fiscal year 18-19. The audit was performed by Moss Levy Hartzheim. The lead auditor was Travis Hull. Again, he's the gentleman to my right. The pre-audit work was done in May of 19 with the wrap-up of October of 19. The purpose of the audit is to show the district what our finances are at the end of each fiscal year, which concludes on June 30th. The audit shows the district's financial position, if there was an improvement or if there was a deficit. It confirms the district is operating within the guidelines of the generally accepted accounting principles, also known as GAAP. And this audit was clean and unmodified. In other words, we had no findings this fiscal year. The primary factors of this audit is our property tax revenue increased by 6%. Our CalPERS unfunded liability increased by 12.2, as that's an ongoing bill that the district will have, and it will continually decline. And that's the challenge. One of the big challenges that the district is funding that CalPERS unfunded liability. Here is a sample or a snapshot of what the audit showed. Our revenues went from $9.41 million to $9.983 million. Our expenditures went from $8.68 to $10.44 million. The net change in our fund balance went from $727,000 to minus $460,000. I'll explain that on the next slide. Our fund balance beginning of the year was 11.4, and at the end of the year it dropped to 10.9. This next slide will explain why we have the negative $460,000. All of our funds are considered governmental funds, and they're wrapped up into one. So if you notice under the Quimby Fund column, our revenues were $205,000 for the year, but we spent $1.3 million. So when you include that Fund 30, that gives you the net result of a minus $460,000. But looking at the general fund, our revenue was 8.6, our expenditures were 8.2, so our revenues exceeded our expenditures by $360,000. The assessment district, the revenues exceeded expenditures by $291,000. But spending that 1.3, again, by wrapping all three of those funds into one, it dropped our expenditures were over our revenue by $1.1 million. As our cash standing on June 30th of 19 is we had $2.76 million in our LAIF. The Ventura County pool had 4.3. Cal Trust, which was recently established, is 1.4. Our MBS is $645,000. Keeping in mind on February 12th, that $245,000 CD will be rolled over to the Ventura County pool. Our daily operations account had $233,000 in it, and our market money funds had $1.8 million. Our debt information, as you can see, the COP for the 2017 bond has gone down by $753,000. We still owe $12.6 million on it. And the pension obligation, which will be paid off in 2022, has a balance of $828,000. And then we paid off our Springbrook accounting software in fiscal year 18-19. The financial health of the district is overall our assets exceed our liabilities by $30.5 million. They increased $337,000 from the prior fiscal year of 17-18. Our unrestricted net position is $191,000, which is the summary of all three funds. And despite the mandated reporting on our balance sheet of the pension obligation, the district continues to show progress and a positive. There's no anticipated fiscal impact to this report, and I recommend that the board approve the annual audit of 2018-19 as prepared by Moss, Levy, and Hartsign. And if you have any questions, I have Travis to help.
Mr. Malloy?
Yeah, could we go back to the slide on pension obligation growing? Yeah, there we go. So the reason that grew is that in this time frame, the unfunded liability payments are on a negative amortization scale for the first 5 years, and then 10 years of regular, and then catch up. So that's why even though we're making these payments, we're falling behind, because that's a part of the plan, right?
Yeah, exactly. So as you mentioned, it's being amortized over the 5 years and then after. So it's not, okay, the market had a bad year, so all of a sudden the liability shoots up.
Yeah.
It's, amortized over the long period. But that liability is expected to essentially just keep going up every year until the pool kind of hits a break-even point where there's, enough members that have joined under PEPRA, where the benefits aren't as lofty as the previous people. And once that kind of hits a break-even point, and the liability will kind of top out, and then it'll start going down.
Yeah.
But until we reach that point, it's going to keep going up each year more than likely.
Yeah, I noticed when I dove into the numbers for what we spent, our actual percentage of spending per employee is dropping because we now have a bunch of our 2.5 to 50 employees.
Exactly. And so that's going to keep going down.
retiring.
As new employees get hired and they're under the new PEPRA plan, that'll keep going down.
Okay. I just wanted to mention that because these numbers are so daunting that it's pretty scary to everybody, so. That's all I have.
I just want to follow up on that. I mean, from your side, have you heard anything within the industry about, CalPERS is a mess, but we all know that. But have you heard anything about when you think that break-even point will be reached, or there's nothing? I know CalPERS doesn't really talk about it.
Yeah, it would have to be CalPERS that would provide that information. And we do a conference every year where they kind of give an update, and they haven't provided any sort of, and it's going to be different district by district based on hiring. So yeah, there's no break-even point that we can see in the future.
But you can't give us any guidance on that from what you've heard.
Unfortunately, no. Yeah, that'd be more of an actuary's job. And yeah, I'm not sure.
Okay, thanks.
Well, it's also market returns driven too.
There's a whole bunch of factors, but still, if you did some modeling or something out there, but I guess not. Okay, how many years have you been doing this for this now?
I've been the audit manager for 3 years, so yeah, this is my third year
Okay,
doing it.
thank you very much.
I don't have anything.
You don't have anything? I don't have anything. So do I have a motion?
I move that the board approve the financial report for fiscal year 2018-19 as prepared by Moss, Levy, Hartsign.
I'll second.
Director Malloy,
Aye.
Director Mishler,
Aye.
Director Kelly,
Aye.
Director Dixon,
Aye.
Chair Magner.
Aye. Thank you, Travis. Okay. B, Freedom Gym options.
Good evening, Chair, members of the board, general manager, staff, guests, and viewers at home. Eric Story, your Recreation Services Manager. Before you tonight, I'm bringing Freedom Gym options. So just a quick summary of what got us to this point. So November 2018, Oxnard Union High School District gave us notice that they were planning to sell Freedom Gym. February 2019, staff brought to the board considerations on options to include various things, whether we negotiate, we look at purchasing, we look at placing tents, we look at other options. That same year in April, we brought the tent options to the board, which consisted of various sizes and locations, various operational items that we would need to operate that, as well as an option to continue negotiating with Oxnard Union High School District for Freedom Gym. September, the gym was sold. And in October, district staff met with the potential new owner. That continued until recently, by which it has sold and it's going into escrow here, I believe in the end of March is the last update we got. So in doing that, the district met, and this was presented again in November in terms of what options we really have, whether it be use other locations, whether it be figure out joint use agreements with other similarly situated organizations or agencies, whether it be look at existing facilities or work with the new owner to look at options that we can continue programming. Now, in terms of the programming we want to consider or we need to consider are these four. Badminton, which plays Saturday evenings, table tennis, open play basketball, and open play pickleball, which are Monday through Friday, various times throughout the day. One element in this is the various other rentals that the district has, and I'll explain that more as we get a little more into this. So again, the four options that were brought to you in November that we are bringing back because of the finality of Freedom Gym being sold, were move programming to other district facilities, look at a joint use agreement with other agencies, the tent structure, and renting Freedom Gym from the new owner. So, the other district facilities option, which is option in your packet, excuse me, which is option 2 in your packet. We looked at table tennis and badminton. Now, one thing to consider in this is we met with every single group that would respond. So we met many times with many of the organizations, the agencies, the groups that use our facilities, to understand and know their programming, what they need to be successful, make sure that we fully understood everything that they needed, whether it be the time setup, the time breakdown, true programming needs. So in speaking with table tennis and badminton, we explored other facilities. One was the auditorium. It was similarly situated in terms of size. Obviously, there's a huge glass window, bank of windows, which was a consideration. There would be additional wear and tear on the floors. That would cause more maintenance efforts on our team's part. But the biggest consideration in this was the programming. In last year, we had 170 unique classes in the auditorium the entire year. And those are at various days and times. But more importantly is table tennis needs a lot of storage space that district we do not have. Same thing with badminton. They would have needed a lot of storage space to facilitate their programming. But I think it goes to the point of the programming itself is we could not guarantee the same programming at the same times at the same days. So moving to pickleball in FY or 2018, the district spent $45,000 on converting 6 courts at Bob Kildee. So if we're looking at other district facilities that these organizations, these users can use, Bob Kildee Community Park for pickleball was an option. In your packet, these are just a couple for basketball. Mel Vincent, Locker, Carmenita, Pitts Ranch. I think we outlined, about a half dozen different parks that all have basketball setups. So these are all different other district facilities that we looked at and explored. So looking at a joint use agreement, we worked with the Boys and Girls Club over there. The biggest challenge is the programming again, is they have a lot of programming that happens throughout the year, but even more so during summer break, spring, winter, and fall breaks as well. And more importantly is they only have limited time throughout the rest of the year, 8 to noon. Which wouldn't be, it's a start, but it wouldn't supplement what we're currently doing with our current programming. So in looking at this agreement, they were looking to have us help with the maintenance costs of the floors, and in kind we would have provided them an activity guide advertisement in each of our issues, which would equate to $4,500 a year, as well as passes for the aquatic center, which they already use. But again, the biggest challenge on this option was the storage space. They don't have any more, and they are currently in the process of expanding, so we would not know what that would do to any programming that we may have had in there, yet alone their own programming. The tent structure we've talked about at large or at length. So these are still the same items that we've brought before. Again, it could range anywhere from $48,000 to $200,000 for a tent structure. But I think the biggest challenge with that is it can only be up at one site for a maximum of 6 months within any 12-month period, which is great for the 6 months that we're using it. But what happens to the other 6 months? We lose the programming. So it gets us to the point of renting Freedom Gym. So in meeting with Mr. Kusky, also named Eric, we're looking at a 6 to 12-month lease. We would have access, and we would be able to use Freedom Gym Monday through Friday, 8 to 4. Anytime after that during the week, it would be Eric's time, as well as the weekends, completely his time to do what he wants with his gym. As part of this agreement, it is proposed that the district would continue to pay the water and electric, which on average we pay about $10,000 a year. We would also, much to the same effect that we would have with the Boys and Girls Club, is we'll provide a one-page complimentary ad as part of the deal in each issue for the length of this agreement. So we do 3 issues per year. That's 15 times 3, 45. Obviously, we would provide insurance for our programming and our uses. He would continue to maintain the exterior, and we would maintain the interior, so that would be a lot of the day-to-day general maintenance items. It would be replacing light bulbs until our supply ran out, and in which case he would then retrofit and upgrade. And again, to Bob's point, we spent $10,000 annually on maintenance at Freedom Gym. So this option would allow us to maintain the majority of the programming that we have in there. In terms of those items I listed earlier. And I mentioned we do have other rentals, so as part of this process, if the board decides to direct staff and the general manager, is any of those rentals that we currently have or have traditionally had, we'll work with the new owner to kind of send them his way, because again, we won't have access or programming rights in the evening time or on weekends. So, a quick look at the financials. This includes maintenance, ad trade, and passes. Is estimated around $7,600 per year if we were to go with a joint use agreement with the Boys and Girls Club. The tent structure, you see the numbers there, and then Freedom Gym, again, estimated about $10,000 all in with utilities, maintenance, and the ad trade. So it is recommended the board provide direction or provide general manager the ability to continue negotiating and enter into a MOU. With Mr. Kusky for renting of Freedom Gym. And I'm happy to answer any questions.
Director Kelly?
That was an excellent presentation. I don't have any questions.
Yeah, I had just a couple of questions on the fiscal impact. This is estimated $10,000. Did you count in that? Is there what kind of revenue losses if we're passing programs over to Mr. Kusky? What kind of revenue are we going to lose on that?
It would be in the ballpark of 10.
Another 10 on top. So really 20 is probably a more reasonable number. And within that 10, did you say that you included the cost? You sort of added in the cost of what those advertisements in the
correct. So in Freedom Gym, it would include the water utilities, the cost of the insurance, as well as the activity guide advertisement.
Okay. So the activity guide is not really that much of a cost to us, really.
It's not a hard cost to us, but in terms of accounting for what we could be earning, we wanted to include that to give a true picture of what we're doing.
Okay. But if you took that out, that number would be smaller, but then you add another 10 in for lost revenue for programming that we're not going to have anymore. Okay. All right, that's all I have.
Yeah, no question. Thank you.
Yeah, I have a question. In the staff report here, it says the district to provide insurance for gym use, and I didn't see that on your slides. Maybe because I'm...
Bullet point number 5, Director, district to provide insurance.
Okay,
This is
that's why I
specifically
didn't see it.
for
It's
Freedom
at
Gym
the bottom.
option.
Okay, I was following the order. Okay, so the insurance is for our users when they're in the building?
It would be for the time allocated to us Monday through Friday,
Right.
8 to 4, as well as any time that we may need to rent it for if we were to have programming or otherwise. So the insurance would cover our programming.
Okay,
alone.
and that's the same that we do now. I mean, okay, all right. I wanted to make sure we weren't responsible for insuring his building for him because I suspect that's one of his challenges in this process is insuring a building that old. And I want to make sure we don't get stuck responsible for an old building.
I can't speak to his challenges, but I do want to relay that Mary and I, our general manager, have met with him multiple times since November, both in person, on the phone, as well as many emails. And he wanted to relay his appreciation in working with us so far to continue to provide services to the community and making it a win-win-win for us, for him, as well as our users.
Is the intention to have this an extended period agreement or just?
Right now, we're looking at anywhere from 6 to 12 months while we kind of feel it out.
Okay.
And from there, we'll bring back either long-term rental options or see where we are with other projects that the district is working on.
Now, he's intending to do some renovations to the building on an ongoing basis. Is that going to interfere with the programming?
He is definitely planning on doing that. He said he's more than flexible with what we have going on. And if he were to need to close it down for a week, we would be proactive on our end to let our users know. But again, in all of the meetings that we had with our user groups, we definitely let them know time and time again that current programming may not be the same once this transition happens.
Yeah.
So that was the start and end of every single conversation, so they knew. But we would also like to take care in letting them know well in advance any planned maintenance or planned improvements, so they don't either show up and it's closed or locked or there's crews in there. So we'll be proactive on that approach.
Okay. Well, this looks to me like the deal that I can't imagine that we could ever expect to get. I mean, somebody, we thought we were going to lose this building and somebody was going to buy it and store stuff in it or whatever. And, for the chance to continue to use it for roughly $1,000 a month more than we're spending on it now, to me is a no-brainer. I mean, I wish he was here so we could say thank you. But this makes a lot of sense to me. So
I have two questions, Eric. We're going to cover all of the electric and water?
Yes, and we currently do that now.
Okay.
So year to date so far, it has been roughly $2,500, and I have the expenses here. Thank you, Leo. So the short answer is yes.
Okay, and you don't think it'll go up that much with him programming the other times?
No, our current program, excuse me, our current programming is all over the board itself.
Okay.
And as of right now, he doesn't have any other renters aside from his wrestling club and other users that he's in relation with.
Okay.
So until he figures out his ebb and flow and what he's really planning on doing with the gym, I can't estimate other than what we currently do.
And what about the parking issue?
So he also wanted to relay that will be included in whatever MOU that we come up with, and that if there was a cost from the airport to him, it would be included, and there would be no additional add-on. He's not going to nickel and dime. He wants to make sure that, again, it's a win-win-win for everybody.
Okay, so if in 3 months they then start charging him, he's not going to come back and say, I need to renegotiate with you guys?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, all right. Well, I'm like Director Monloy. I don't think there's anything I don't see anything wrong with it, so. Mary, did you have something?
No, I was just going to add a bit to what Eric had said, is that literally, and part of the reason we're looking at doing a MOU is because we're looking at this on a trial to see how this goes, because he will have some stuff that he has to do. So we know that when he takes ownership, one of the first things he'll have to do is he has to deal with termites, and they'll tent it. So long as we know those things, and that was kind of part of the conversation, we'll keep up the inside. He's going to start making changes to the outside. So I think this is to kind of gauge both agencies, or our agency along with him, of how this works.
What's the timeline on this?
Well, this originally was supposed to close at the end of January. Right now is, Eric had mentioned, it's not closing till the end of March. So we'll stay as is until that closes, which is why there's a little bit of play with some of this stuff. So he's been really good about staying in contact of, like, here's the new date, here's the times. So we'll continue down that route.
Okay, so do I have a motion of some type?
I'll make a motion that our board authorizes our general manager to proceed with option number 1, which is to rent the Freedom Gym from the new owner, and to look at what, either a 6 or 12-month or 1-year agreement, as discussed in our presentation.
Second?
Karen? Director Mishler?
Aye.
Director Dixon?
Aye.
Director Kelly?
Aye.
Director Malloy?
Aye.
Chair Magner?
Aye. 8C, resolution number 644, I can't even talk tonight. Approval of the mid-year budget adjustments for FY 2019-2020. Leo, it's all yours.
Chairperson Magner, members of the board, tonight I'm going to come to you with the mid-year budget adjustments for fiscal year 2019-2020. The budget was adopted in July of 19, and every mid-year, the staff reviews the budget to make sure that we are keeping in line with where our projections would be for June 30th of that fiscal year. The budgets have been brought before the board for approval, and we'll bring the accounts more in line so that we can meet that June 30, 2020 target. Again, the budget's reviewed at mid-year by the staff and by the general manager, and we do these budget adjustments to stay consistent with accounting practices and are recommended by the district's auditors. For fiscal year, mid-year for 1920, our Fund 10 revenue is at 61.8%. Our personnel for Fund 20 is at 48.9%, and our services and supplies for Fund 10, Fund 10 personnel is at 48.9%. Fund 10 services and supplies is at 58.2%. The requested budget adjustments that I'm bringing to you this evening are the ROPS reimbursement, which is the recognized obligation payment schedule that the city, they prepare that schedule, so we don't know what it is. I've always been very conservative on that because I don't know how it's going to be prepared. And we're asking to increase that by $100,000. Our contract classes, due to the closing of the pool, we're going to decrease that by $20,000. Our public fees will decrease that by $80,000. Again, it's due to the closure of the pool and programming has been having low enrollment. Our entry fees, in decreasing those by $10,000. Most of this is all related to the pool closure. And then the rental, a decrease of $20,000. A total change for Fund 10 revenue would be a decrease of $30,000. Our personnel expenses, again, this is due to the closure of the pool. We're going to decrease our part-time salaries by $40,000. Our services and supplies for Fund 10, our IT services, we're asking for an increase of $13,500, and that's for prior year billing and website maintenance. Our legal services, an increase of $22,000. That's for our employee relations and projects that the district's been working on that has needed legal advice for this fiscal year. Our food supplies were a decrease of $10,000 due to we've been able to obtain community partnerships. Our permit and licensing, a decrease of $5,000. We've been applying for less permits, and our instructor services, a decrease of $25,000. It's a low contract instructor cost. Our rents and leases equipment, a decrease of $5,000. Again, we've been able to find community partnerships that have been able to help us out with that. And our bus and excursions, a decrease of $15,000, and we had to cancel a couple due to low enrollment. Overall, that decreases our expenses by $24,482. So as you see, our budget adjustments, our revenue would be decreased by $30,000. Our expenses are being decreased by $64,000, because that's the combination of the two slides. And our capital, we'll have a project, and I'll get to that one in just a moment. So our total change for revenue and expenses is a change of $34,482 to the good. Our capital project for Fund 10 is the Community Center Kitchen. And that is going to be a project in progress as far as finding out more information. Right now, our dishwasher is red tagged, and staff is going to have to go back and review the kitchen and what needs to be done and look at the cost. If you have any questions for that, Bob's better to answer those than I am. Excuse me. So overall, our budget adjustments, our revenue increased 34,482. That's including the revenue over the expense change. And then on July 30th, our revenue over expenses, when we adopted the budget, was at 29,201. So with those two numbers in mind, our mid-year bottom line is revenue over expenses by 63,683. For Fund 20, we have no revenue or expense adjustments. Fund 30 has no revenue or expense adjustments, but we do have one capital project that we're asking for. And that capital project is the chemical injector for PV fields, which we're estimating a cost of $60,000. So Fund 10, revenue over expenses increased to $63,000. Again, it's keeping in mind the $29,200 from July 1st, added with our mid-year adjustment. Fund 20, there's no change, and then Fund 30 would have a $60,000 change to capital. So I'm asking the board tonight if they would adopt Resolution 644 in approving the 1920 mid-year budget adjustments.
Mr. Malloy?
Well, we went over this in finance, and
So that's why I'm asking you.
yeah, so it's pretty. This is a sort of pretty typical level of things that go up and down. The capital projects were actually really close on, so that's why no adjustments there. But this is just all sort of the usual stuff. Looking at those numbers related to the pool is really interesting because we typically think of something we do that people pay for as a money-making operation. But, a pool is a hole in the ground you pour money into, and so when we have it closed, it actually has a positive fiscal impact, but obviously has a negative impact when we can't use our pool for a few months. But when we get the showers redone, it's going to really make that thing look classy. We'll probably gain some of that back, but it'll take a while for that to happen.
Yeah, I just want to add, again, Mark and I saw all this stuff in our committee meeting, and I just want to make a note there about the injector, $60,000 for Pleasant Valley Fields. That should be helping us with, one of the biggest problems we have out there is we have very poor soil, essentially no soil, when we first opened up that complex and we laid down the sod. And the only soil out there was what came with the sod. And so, but with all these years and stuff, we're trying to break down the rock and soil underneath the grass so the roots can get down there and grow. And as the roots of the plants of the grass do better, then we can use the fields more. And so part of that 60,000 is to do this, but also includes a little study to look at the soil standard, look at the soil as the condition is in right now and stuff. And then this chemical injector will help us break down that soil or the dirt there into soil and help out the root structure for the grass long term. So that's something that should be very positive over the long run. Thank you.
Director Dixon?
No questions.
Director Kelly?
Director Mishler, I'm not quite sure I heard what you said correctly. You said that the injection will change what's out there now into soil?
Well, it would accelerate the process. I mean, if we did nothing over time, the dirt, we're adding amendments out there and the roots are growing through it. And over time, the water's getting down and there's chemical reactions going on. So over time, that dirt will eventually grade and generate and evolve into a soil compound. Now, it may take 100 years or something. But,
yeah, that's what I was thinking.
But no, it's not going to happen overnight. But the chemical injector that we have will be adding chemicals to the water when it goes out there to be pumped and sprayed on the field. Well, and so that will go down in there, and some of those chemicals will help accelerate this process to develop soil.
When the term injector is used, what exactly does that mean? You can answer it.
What happens every time it waters, so it waters 3-4 days a week, it's being fertilized. And being that we have the reclaimed water and everything else that's out there with the soil, as Mike was saying, the consultant's going to analyze all the soil samples. We're going to hit like 50 samples all over the park, and they'll go through it and say, okay, you need to add a certain chemical to it. So we'll have a couple different tanks that'll be shooting that in every like it's kind of like the pool chemicals. We don't do it manually. It's done by a machine. We just have to keep it stocked.
I think one of the things for the people listening also to help this is we're not actually buying something that's in the field injecting into the ground. We're buying a tanker we're buying a mixing tank, if you want to call it that.
Mixes with the water.
It's essentially a mixing tank or tanks that the chemicals will be in, we'll mix with the water before we irrigate the fields.
And there's, it wasn't mentioned, but this should reduce our cost with our contract also. We fertilize out there, 3-4 times a year. That'll lower that. That'll take that away. So we will be purchasing all that now, or however we decide to write the contract. But more than likely, we'll have a contract with it, like Nutrient or somebody, some kind of company will do that. So.
Then I have this question. Right now, one of the major problems out there is, as Director Mishler mentioned, is the soil. I mean, it's pretty much clay that's out there right now because they literally scraped 7 or 8 feet off of the top of the fields when they built the houses out there. And what happens now, the sprinklers come on, the water goes up, hits the undulating surface and rolls down into the low spots. I'm wondering if there's been consideration before we, to that particular fact that the high spots are probably not going to get the benefit of this injection system because most of the water now hits the high spots and rolls down to the low spots.
There's still penetration, and also we're going to put it with a new contract, which will be coming up next year. We'll be aerating or airifying every month. So we're going to break that down even more. For the amount of use those fields get, we've been very fortunate the way we've been handling it. And I talked with the consultant, it needs to be done monthly. So even if it's just with a blade, or we have a machine that fractures the ground, and it takes a little bit more time, but it does a great job, and it'll allow that to happen more. And the time to do it is right there, just end of the season in June, and we're shut down in July. We need to work on it. So.
I suggest also in the contract you put in some broadleaf around the times that it rains, because after it rains we just get a tremendous influx of every kind of weed you can imagine.
They were late this year. With Matt leaving, we were not on top as much because that's always been Matt's baby. So,
But that's a separate issue from outside
I know
what
that.
we're doing here.
I know that.
but we're aware of it. We've been on them about it.
But it's because that's been going on the last 2 years.
Yeah. So it's we should see a different change in it, and also with the chemicals going into it, it'll get the nutrients it needs. It'll put different stuff into the ground. We might have one tank that'll do the pre-emergent for us instead of paying them to do it. Now we can just add it automatically. So
I like it.
we have 2 or 3 tanks over there, and one would have the fertilizer. The other small ones could have whatever. So.
Yeah, because everything is so poor out there that
And we-
it has to be fertilized more often.
And we knew once we get reclaimed water, we've been holding off and seeing how this is working, but now we're starting to realize, okay, it's time to jump on it.
You can tell just by looking at it.
This year was tough on it.
All right, thank you.
Yeah, Bob, I had a couple more questions following up on that. The soil analysis thing, is that a one-time event, or is there a company that continually monitors this?
It's a one-time event. What he's doing, he'll go through and give me make sure we're having the right water sitting in all of our areas. We'll go through and analyze a lot of factors of how many hours go on the fields. it analyzes a bunch, top of my head, but it'll be a one-time deal, but, we can also take samples and send them away. That'd be on our own, it's not very expensive.
So then you develop some sort of a program that at certain times of the year you add this product or that product, and then they'll give you some sort of a schedule for that based on the analysis, or is that?
Yes.
Okay.
And what kind of work we need to do.
This will also provide a good snapshot, because if we start developing a history over years, we have this analysis, and then in a year or two or three, we can always go out and do another analysis and kind of mark our progress, and we can see what's going on over time.
I think as long as we follow his guidelines, we're going to improve those playing fields.
So excuse me, Bob, so part of this was also having somebody that is not taking care of our fields to look at it, so you have a third party that's looking at it. So it literally is to look at that. We know that all the salts from the, has an effect on it, plus the bad soil underneath. So it's really kind of starting to look at this, knowing that how time intensive it is. Is there a different way, and can we do it better? And so kind of working with a consultant that deals with sports fields specifically, it's starting to look at that, and then also looking if we're going to put chemicals into the system, if we're going to do those things, how we can be more efficient. Because if you've ever been out there and watched Brightview, even if you try and spot to go out there, like you have an area, it takes you forever to do it. So if we can be smarter in how we work, and when we can apply those things, we can be more efficient. Those things over time will, help us potentially save a little bit of money on the contract, but the other thing it will do is help us with the soil amendments and make the soils better over time. But you're all correct, it's not going to happen overnight.
Okay. Thank you.
One other thing, Elaine. When you have an injection system, one of the options you can put into your kind of toolkit is wetting agents that allow the absorption better, so that addresses what you were talking about it running off. And I know we did some work, I've seen some work at golf courses with wetting agents, and it can also save you a lot of money on water because it allows the water to be absorbed more quickly. And that's not something that you can put in a granular form and use it. So when you have a water system, basically this just gives us a lot more control. And obviously the labor component of spreading fertilizer through the irrigation system versus paying someone to drive around, and it's substantial savings as well as more efficient. So we talked about this 10 years ago when we built the park. We talked about this step, and now we're finally getting to it. So
I have a question about ROP. Have we gotten that payment already?
Yes, we
Oh,
received
okay.
all the payments for the year.
Okay, all right, thank you. Okay, what's the pleasure of the board?
I make a motion to adopt resolution number 644 for the approval of mid-year budget adjustments.
second.
Director Mishler,
Aye.
Director Malloy,
Aye.
Director Kelly,
Aye.
Director Dixon,
Aye.
Chair Magner.
Aye. Okay, 8D, consideration of design options for new marquee at the community center. Jessica, it's all yours, it looks like.
Good evening. Chairman Magner, Board of Directors, district staff, and visitors. I'd like to talk to you about our proposal of design options and vendors for our community center marquee. Excuse me. So in the 2019-2020 capital improvement budget, the board approved $50,000 for the overall project of a new digital LED marquee at the entrance of Community Center Park and the district administrative offices. The project includes a digital LED display, a new sign or cabinet illuminating the current logo and district name, and landscaping improvements. A little bit of background, the current single-sided marquee, it was installed by our records on November 30th of 1990, and it currently stands at 5 feet wide, 9 feet tall, and 4 inches. The district logo that is currently there is outdated, it is not our current logo, and the name of the district is not illuminated. It does have a change copy panel that is illuminated, and that copy panel is required to change out by hand. So that is one area and component that we are looking at reducing staff time to take that away instead of having to go out there and it stays static for a week, 2 weeks, et cetera, at a time. So here's a current picture of our marquee in the daylight. As you can see, it's rubbing off, outdated. Our parks maintenance staff has done a great job trying to keep up with it and keep it in good condition, but it certainly has lived its life cycle. Again, we've looked for not only wanting it to be in good condition, but we also, another component of this project is looking for ways to increase our exposure of our programs, our facility offerings, keeping the community updated and informed of changes and reservations. So one of the estimates of this, our marketing staff specialist, Emily Robb, thankfully she provided me with some good information that the city has estimated that their marquees out here retrieve 17,000 drive-bys per day. And so we estimate with us being right down the street that we get the same estimated amount of drive-bys. And with an increased digital marquee, we would hope that that could increase or at least provide more exposure to those 17,000 views that are seen per day. So a little analysis of the project. We solicited bids from 35 different sign vendors in both Ventura and Los Angeles counties. Lowest came in at $17,749.08, all the way up to $44,621.25. 5 companies responded. One company, Daxtronics Incorporated, responded with only an LED message display quote, and then 4 other companies gave single-sided sign and LED display options, and then 2 companies gave double-sided sign and LED display options. One component of this, when Park Services Manager Bob Sarasulo and I met with city staff, they were very adamant of keeping within 40 square feet maximum of sign space and no taller than 8 feet. One component that was not highlighted when we met on that initial conversation was within the sign ordinance of a double-faced sign. Now, staff, we had internal discussion of the exact language of permitted versus required. And so I wanted to bring to your attention and provide that option, acknowledgement that in the sign permit regulation, it does mention of a double-faced monument sign, and it says of permitted, whereas single-faced wall identification sign is different. Our current signage is single-faced, and when I did, as you saw in the staff report, when I reached out to Senior Planner John Novi with the city, his response for clarification was simply that single is fine and actually preferred. So based on the bids that we got back, looking into the companies that replied, there were several key factors that we looked at in the selection for a recommendation of Daxtronics Incorporated and Custom Signs Incorporated for the sign and installation. The company reputation of Daxtronics, they are a well-known company within the sports world, recreation world for scoreboards and signage. I have used them in multiple agencies, and I know many colleagues who have used them. They're reliable, it's dependable, enough to where the signs are working and you can't even get the controllers because they're so out of date anymore. So they have a good reputation. The other lowest bidder had a reputation where we were able to find they had complaints by the Better Business Bureau. There were public social media complaints of quality, of issues and challenges with them. So we looked at company reputation. We also looked at power supply and connectivity. The lowest bidder of Signorama, they had the requirement that there must be a clear sight line between the building and the sign. And in order to do that, we would have to remove trees where the current sign is. Also, in order to do that with that clear sign, we would have to invest in upping our parameter of connectivity for the Wi-Fi. Currently, our Wi-Fi connection does not go out to the street, so that would have to be an additional increased cost that we don't want to expend. Whereas Dextronics sign, that is based on a Verizon 4G cellular connection, so we would not have to do any internal upgrades to our connectivity for the sign to work. Also, the preferred vendors, so with Dextronics, as you saw in the report, that is under the Sourcewell Cooperative Purchasing Contract. Their preferred installation vendor is Custom Signs. And so certainly we don't have to use them or either one. However, we do recognize that as a company, they have a preferred vendor that they have worked with of installing their signs. And then also future upgrading options. The sign options that Customs provided has a separate cabinet space for the district signage and logo from the LED display. So we want to harm and disturb the LED display as few as possible. And that top signage of district, let's say we change out logo or we change out coloring, any type of branding, that sign proposal allows the least amount of disturbance to the LED display, whereas the lowest sign option and the highest sign option that we received, you'd have to change out the entire marquee. Excuse me. So those are the reasons of looking into it. Here are the specs on the Dextronics LED message display. It is a 15.85 millimeter RGB display. 10 to 19 millimeter RGB is standard for roadside signage of this instance. So it is a good medium. A comparison is Monte Vista Middle School. Their display, their recent updated display, was done by these two vendors. So they have a 15.85 millimeter RGB display that you could use as that comparison. It comes with 5-year parts, 1-year on-site labor warranty. Again, it has uses a Verizon 4G cellular data plan and Venus software that is cloud-based, so it allows 2 administrative users. We would have that more than likely be Eric and Emily doing with marketing, but you have that option of not just 1 but 2. And as long as you have a cloud connection, a Wi-Fi connection, you can access that. The pricing of the bids, single-sided, $17,749.08. Double-sided, $28,862.75. And again, with Dextronics, they are under Sourcewell Cooperative Purchasing. And as you can see, I put in, these were the other bids that we received, varying heights, and then at the bottom of what it would be with the Dextronics sign if we went with that vendor. Fiscal impact, again, $50,000 was allocated for the project. The bid for the single message board, as you've heard, $17,749.08, and the bid for custom signs, both of them single-sided, for new monument sign and installation, $17,642.07. Residual funds would be set aside for permits, landscaping enhancements, and additional installation materials. If you have any questions of that, Park Supervisor Brandon Lopez and Park Services Super Manager Bob Cersulo, they have both worked with me on the project, and we have discussed and can answer any questions about those additional changes and enhancements that you would want to put. Includes permits as well. So it is the recommendation of staff to approve the bids of Dextronics Incorporated through Sourcewell for the single-sided LED Galaxy Outdoor Electronic Message Center at $17,749.08 and Custom Signs Incorporated for the single-sided cabinet, signage, and installation services at $17,642.07 for a total project cost not to exceed $44,000. So, any questions?
Malloy.
I'm looking at these size things, and it's really confusing to me. Could you go back a couple of slides to where you had this size sets?
This one?
Yeah, see there were 9.3 high, 5.6 wide, 7.5 high, and then the previous slide was much smaller, 3 foot 8 inches high, 8 foot wide.
I think, part of this is the panel versus the sign enclosure. You're
Correct.
looking at two different components. It's like a TV flat panel display within the wall unit you're building in your house. So this is the physical, like, equivalent. It's not a TV, but this would be like the flat panel TV that fits within the other fixture.
Okay, so those other sizes are for the full enclosure?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
If you want to look at page 119 in your packet. So as you see, so right here, the LED message display is the American flag. So that is a smaller component. What custom signs or Signorama, Dave signs, front signs is quoting on is the cabinet to encapsulate the entire sign.
Okay. All right, I got it.
So no, definitely a valid point.
So the scoreboard side of it is 3'8" tall and 8'1" wide?
Yes, sir.
Okay, all right. That's the only question I have.
Yeah, I have a bunch of questions, I'm sorry. Okay, first of all, is this going to be lighted? Is that part of the cost?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so that was I knew that was an option they talked about, but is that already quoted as part of the custom sign people?
Yes, sir.
Put in a lighted thing?
Yes.
So at nighttime, we can see the Pleasant Valley Recreation and Park District logo on top?
Correct. Now, one thing I will keep in mind, certainly we have not gone through the permitting process, so the City Planning Commission, they will give their input and direction on how, if we can have the LED message display on at night. One thing that they did stress is that the sign has to be able to dim and/or completely turn off at night. They don't want it to be a distraction. We can't have moving objects, but they did assure us that we can have the district signage component to be illuminated throughout the entire night.
Right. Okay, my next question, was this actually run through any committee?
No?
No, okay. Okay, I'll get back to that later. But my next question is vandalism. The city has this, the school districts. Have you checked with anybody to see what type of, I'm just, since it's low to the ground, unless you put it up 8 feet high, like the high school or something, kids can get to it. Do we know if there's been a history of vandalism for these things? Or they're pretty, people don't bother them? Do we know?
I asked the sign vendors that I spoke with, and they said that they have gotten feedback that there has not been an increase due to it being an LED sign, that their partners have not given them any sign or indication that there has been an increase in vandalism just because they switch it out to an LED.
Okay, thank you. What I did, and I'm going to get back to this in a second here, but I went down to the city sign right out front here. And I'm just having fun because they actually have, even though you're only supposed to have one sign on the frontage, they have two signs out in front, right? They got the one cement sign with the city hall name. Then, of course, they got the electronic sign down here. So they have, so this for our park staff, in case you ever get nervous and we're putting up two signs along one of our facilities on the same street and someone complains, well, the city's already doing it. So I'm just telling you not to worry about it. But anyway, okay, I'm not complaining or anything. I'm just saying not to worry about it. The sign right here in front, which is typically red, lettering and stuff, have you went out and measured it, looked at it? I went out and did all that, so.
I didn't measure it. I mean, I've certainly looked at it, absolutely, but I did not measure it, no.
So their line and column spacing, let me just back up for a second. So the one that we're looking at is the line and column spacing is 15.85 millimeters. That's equivalent for people who out there who are not scientists, or typically that's, if you convert it to inches, that's 0.62 inches. So that's square. So that's what you can control. That's the resolution, is 0.62 inches. Okay. So if you want to, and then as in our handout, I think it was also provided, if you want to put a character, you need 7 of those pixels. Each one of those is a pixel. So each pixel is 0.62 inches across and high. And then if you want to put a character up there, you need 4.4 inches because you got 7 of these pixels to make up one character. just to let you know how that works. So the sign out in front here is a little bit worse. They're basically around 19 millimeters versus the 16 millimeters we're talking about. Just to give you an example what's going on out front. And the character height out front here is 5.5 inches is what they can do for a letter height compared to the 4.4. But just to give you an idea, so the one out in front here is only a little bit worse than the one that we're getting, or the one we're getting or thinking about is only a little bit better in terms of resolution than out here. When I went to the company website, and I think the company's good, like you said, and everything, like you said, they also have an 8 and 10 millimeter examples. And I should mention, for the one that the staff is recommending right now, the 15.8 millimeters, the minimum viewing distance is 37 feet. So you have to stand back 37 feet from the sign to be able to read and recognize what's up there on the sign, because the resolution is so poor. So the sidewalk is 26 feet away, the curb to the sidewalk. So if you're on our sidewalk in front of our park office on the sidewalk and you turn back and look at the sign, you won't be able to read it because the resolution, you're too close. You're under the 37 feet minimum distance to recognize those little pixels and everything. Now, if you're in the street, that's okay because the street asphalt starts at 37 feet. So that's, if you're in a car out in the intersection, you'll be able to read it. But if you're on the sidewalk looking at it, you won't be able to read our own sign because the resolution is too large. So then I looked at what they provide. The next one is a 10 millimeter type screen, LED, and there it's 10 millimeters, which is essentially 0.4 inches across. And there the minimum viewing distance is 21 feet. So the better the resolution, the closer you can get to it and so recognize what you're reading. And so that would make it readable from the sidewalk if we had a 10 millimeter LED screen in there instead of a 10 millimeter instead of the 15. And then, of course, they also have an 8 millimeter. So this all leads up to the next question. We don't have any pricing in here for a 10 millimeter. Did you actually look into that at all?
Yes, sir. So we decided to go with the 15 as a happy medium in order to stay with the overall project budget of $50,000. We wanted to be prepared in the event that the City Planning Commission says we want you to have it as double-sided. If we go double-sided, we will, without a doubt, go over that overall project budget. Dave's Signs gave a 10 millimeter quote as for their vendor with Optech. I did not get a 10 millimeter with Daxtronics, but we did that again to try and stay within the overall project budget and give a contingency in the event.
Okay. Going back to our project meeting, I was a person who proposed this initially in our budget meetings.
Okay.
And the 50,000 was just pulled out of thin air. I mean, none of us, I didn't know anything about the cost, and we were just guessing at that. So that's just a placeholder in the budget. What I do not want to happen in this process, and that's why I was asking about, if we had to do this over again, I would like to see an ad hoc committee or something look at this. Because I don't want to have us get a sign and have something it doesn't really meet our needs just because we came up with a magic number of $50,000. And if we need to spend a few bucks more or something, maybe it wouldn't cost anything more than 50. But I'm concerned, very seriously concerned, that the 15 millimeters with a minimum viewing distance of 37 feet isn't going to meet our demand. Because when I went and looked at their videos on their website, they show pictures and stuff. But you got to be way back. They were way across a parking lot when they had their example on their website looking at this resolution. You couldn't get up close to it or anything, and they didn't have much in terms of graphics. The ones that had the better graphic pictures and images and stuff and characters and things that you can play around and actually do were the 8 and 10 millimeter displays. I am very nervous and concerned about doing something here that's going to only be a little bit better than what we see out front here from the city. And that doesn't really meet what I'm my expectations. My expectations were to do something that would be nice with graphics and additional options and pictures and various things like that. And to do that, in my opinion, we should go to the 8 or 10 millimeter type displays and get some costs. So as we go through this, I'm going to propose later that we send this back to staff and try to get some. I like the vendors you picked. I have nothing against the vendors and stuff, and single site is perfect. But I like to see something in a 10. I like to get costing figures personally, myself. I'm not sure about what the rest of the board's going to say. But for myself, I want to see cost figures for an 8, 10 millimeter with the same two, your recommendation, but in 8 and 10 millimeter versus the 15. That's what I have. Thank you.
Director Dixon?
Well, that was very interesting from Director Mishler there. I would agree with him that I think that the most disappointing thing we could do is spend the money on this and then have people complaining that they're walking by and it's unreadable. I think that would be a pretty embarrassing situation for us. So I tend to agree that maybe we need to re-examine this.
Okay.
So.
Director Kelly?
I totally agree with that. The last thing we need is have something that we spend considerable amount of money on, and then have people making jokes about the fact that we spent that money and can't read the sign. So excellent point by Director Mishler, who apparently has done some research on this particular subject. I have questions about what we're going to be allowed to do with this sign. We're going to be able to advertise with this sign?
Staff will bring back options and recommendations. So what we'll do is we'll do a little bit of market research and kind of understand what other agencies do. We'll also look at best practices and what we do currently, whether we're going to use this for only exclusively internal PVRPD programming and events, things like that, or if we want to use it much to the effect that we do our activity guide where we sell ads and advertisements. We can look at options in terms of upsell. So if you're having an event with us, it can be either included, complimentary, or we can put a price to it. We'll bring this back for options and considerations as we're also at the same time working on a fee schedule project, so we can roll that into if that's the will of the board.
Well, that kind of connects with Director Mishler's analysis, because if in fact, and I'm not saying we should, I'm just saying if in fact that were the case, the resolution would be very important, because nobody's going to want to buy any ads if nobody can read them. So,
yeah, my largest concern is if we don't get enough resolution, all we're going to be able to do is put up text like this. That's all you ever see on the city one out front, and you can see the text from a car, but that's not what my vision was. We actually have something that was a little bit nicer, more options that you can see from the car, but you can also put graphics on there and do some pictures or whatever display, and have more, do something a little bit extra on top of that.
one last question. The nighttime use of the sign, we had a discussion where the recreation and park district part of the sign would be available for use. Is that pretty much the way that it is?
Yes, so we would have the top be illuminated of the district name and logo. Again, we would have to refer to what the city says if we can have the LED display component be on at night.
What does the city say?
They did not give us a firm.
You have to dim it at night. So it's basically,
Yeah, so I think what they're looking for is what they don't want is this sign that is flashing and you have because you still have homes that are around there. So what they don't want that to do is to be a disturbance all night long for homeowners that are in the area. So you'd still be able to illuminate the top. The major part of the screen then would go dark during the day.
So
Or in the evening, sorry.
Just, brainstorming. If we had, for instance, a company that would pay us to put their sign up in the evening, and it wasn't a flashing sign or anything like that, would that be prohibited?
We'd have to look specifically and probably have that conversation with them. I think there's probably still going to be times that they're not going to allow it from, so what could happen is, as you're suggesting, there could be a time up until 9 or 10 PM, and then after that time, they may require the sign to go dark.
Well, that would, if it were during that time, that'd probably be the best time.
Or we can dim it, just like your headlights. I mean, you would dim your interior and your car lights, things go dim when it gets dark at night.
Yeah, I'm just thinking, what was the term, 1,700 cars?
About 17,000.
17,000. And it's on a very, nice spot. So somebody might pay to have their logo up there from 6 to 9 and pay us money. We'd be making money when we weren't working. That's just my thoughts. That's all I have.
They did not provide us a hard and fast rule of an exact time or exact days of the week. Bob, correct me, if I'm wrong, step in, but they gave a parameter of reduce the amount of movement and have the capability to be able to dim and the possibility of turning it off when it's dark.
So if I'm hearing correctly, what you'd like us to do is come back with a 10 millimeter, and just to make sure we're looking at one-sided. Okay, so we'll look at one-sided, come back with an 8, a 10. Anything else you'd like us to look at when we bring it back?
I'd like some example signs. Daktronics is really big, so they have a large market share. I want to see examples of
mock-ups.
signs that we can go out and look at and see.
Somewhere else in Ventura County that we can drive
Okay.
by.
And
With
then
the
we'll
8, 10
also
and-
see, I think Daktronics can also do some mock-ups, and we'll have those on the screen next time as well.
Now, this is for Elaine Magner and the board, do we want to have an ad hoc committee look at this before it comes back to us? To me, there were questions here that should have went through a committee before it came to us. Because some of the stuff could have been caught in a
Well,
committee.
you can ask the staff questions when you get your
Okay.
packet and.
Wow, okay.
That's.
But it's too
Yeah, I
late by
know.
then. Once we get
No,
the packet.
it's not too late. We've just done it right
Okay,
now.
okay,
so-
no problem, no problem.
I mean, this has been on the
Well,
list for
I'll just-
at least 8, 9 years, so.
Yeah.
Another 2, 3 months is not going to kill us.
Yeah.
So I think the direction is that it goes back to staff.
Yep, and then we'll bring it back, and if at that point there's still more direction, we can still take
Yeah.
it back. But that way, everybody's having that discussion if there's somebody that wants something a little bit different,
And
but
bef-
we can look at that.
As soon as you have information on an 8 and 10, and 15 examples somewhere else in the county or whatever, let us know.
Sure.
You can shoot out an email or something, let
Yeah,
us know.
and we can all,
We can all take, over the next couple of weeks, we can drive by and check them out.
Okay, we can do that.
Bob can rent a Enterprise and take us for a ride.
But thank you for all your
Would
work
that
you've
be
done.
okay?
You're welcome.
Okay.
Thank you.
If you get the insurance.
Yeah. Okay, so you have direction, Mary?
Yes,
So
thank
it will
you.
be tabled for now and sent back. Okay. That's the end of 8. Now we have 9. The first one is my message for information. And the second one is Ventura County Special Districts Association and California Special Districts Association. So I'm going to kind of wrap it up into one, the three of them, so we can move along. So I just want to say, since we have nobody in the immediate audience except staff and the directors, but the people at home, that January was a pretty rough month for our staff with illnesses and things, and they're still able to get the job done and everything. And so I just want to say how grateful that I am to the staff that we are holding all of our committee meetings like we should be and everything, and that my first concern is everybody's well-being. So please, everybody get well, and we'll move on and hope that February is a better month for all of us for health. So last night was the annual meeting for the Ventura County Special Districts Association, and it was held at the Sterling Hills Country Club. And at the annual meetings, we do awards, and the Director of the Year was Chuck Huffer, who is Director for Canale Recreation and Park District, and he was played a very intricate part in the development of and opening of the healing gardens that the city of Thousand Oaks paid for, and it is on Canale's property, and it honors the 12 victims who were killed on November 7th, 2018. I'm sorry. One of my friends was one of them, so. And then our GM was honored by being selected as the GM of the year. So, Mary, congratulations. Okay.
But no pay raise.
She got a really nice trophy, though.
Oh, she
got
did.
A really
She
nice
did.
A trophy, but no pay raise.
And your name was spelled right. Okay. California Special Districts Association. I was in Sacramento 3 times this month, or in January. We went up. We have 2 vacant positions out of our 18 positions. We have a vacant position in the Southern Network, which is LA and San Diego counties and San Bernardino counties. We also have a vacancy in the Coastal Network, which we are part of, and that is all the way from LA County up to Monterey. So the CSDA will be taking nominations from interested individuals who are either currently GMs or directors of special districts. So we've got that to work on, and so we'll have new board members hopefully by the March meeting for CSDA. So, Mr. Mishler, Ventura County Consolidated Oversight Board.
Yeah, I'm going to hand out a little handout I made. Some of you have already seen this. I don't think Buddy has. This is for staff down here. Bob, if you want it. I'm not sure if someone down there wants it. So the county oversight, this is an overview of what we've done over the last year. Each year, the various cities who have outstanding properties and stuff have to file a admin budget, and also some of them still have properties to sell. And so what we do, all these cities have bonds. And so we have no control over that. The bonds were taken out a long time ago. They're making the payments. We don't oversee that. I mean, that's just something that bond payments are going through and done. But the 2 things we do oversee is when they're trying to sell properties and when they request their admin budget for the year. And I've listed the cities here kind of in the order of Santa Paula being on top, doing the best job, and then down to, well, I'll just mention the Oxnard's on the bottom of the list. Anyway, so as you look down this list, you will see that Santa Paula started the year with 3 properties, but they sold them all during the year. They did exactly what the state of California told them to do: get rid of all your properties, to sell them, get rid of them, close everything out, clean all your books out, do all your documentation, and walk away. And they did all that, and they filed their last and final report. So next year, they won't even be talking to us. All they're doing from on now is their bond payments on their existing bonds. So I gave them the highest good work job thing, and that's why they're on top of this page here. So next year they won't even be on this list because there'd be no reason for them to come to us. Simi Valley's working hard to clear off their stuff. Camarillo cleared off all their books for properties held before our committee was started, and they're working down, and hopefully Simi Valley and Camarillo will be able to file a last and final report this next year and kind of write all their stuff off and just do bond payments from then on. Thousand Oaks has some legal issues they're working through. That's why they requested some money for their admin budget. And hopefully when that's done, they can do their last and final report. Moore Park has fairly significant admin budget. That's because they're gearing up to actually sell these properties. They have 5 properties on the list, still on the books. And they're going to be spending this money to gear up and try to get these things sold on the market and just get rid of them. So they're moving forward. They're making good progress. City of Ventura has 3 properties left over. They haven't made any headway. They're telling us the same thing they told us a year and a half ago when we first started this process. And they're kind of stuck in neutral. We're trying to kick them a little bit to get moving and make some progress. Then you got Fillmore, Port Miami, and Oxnard, which all have properties and significant admin budgets, and we're trying to get them to see the light. So their admin budget goes to us first before it goes to the state. And we can't direct them to do things, but we have a approval power. So if we don't approve it, then it goes back and they can't submit it to the state until we approve it. So we've warned them all that this is the last year they're going to get a free ride in a sense, because they're using a lot of that admin budget to pay for their salaries of city staff. They even got one of these cities has a mayor getting 20% of their annual salary off this admin budget. And I was questioning them, are you telling me that mayor spends 20% of their time overseeing these properties that no one's doing anything with? So anyway, we're going to try to make some headway. At the bottom of this handout, you see this long list of fine print. This per Oxnard has 7 properties, so they have the most properties on book from the old redevelopment agency stuff, which is now called Assessor Agency. And they're not making much progress on that. So, but we're getting them, they're supposed to come in, all these cities that have properties left are supposed to come in and give us a status report and an update in a couple months. But Oxnard down here, their accounting department walked into their Assessor Agency folks and said, oh, what about all these properties? So there's all these things that was done with all this redevelopment funds that there's no documentation, there's no record. It's a big mess. And so they went from 7 to 50 something, I don't know. So they have this big mess of stuff they've been doing with this money and just popped out of accounting. And the stuff in the bottom here is $51 million. We don't even know if this work was done or not. So we're sending them back and say, look, you guys have to go back and start investigating and verifying all this work was done, blah, blah, blah. So they got a lot, per Oxnard has a lot of stuff to do here. So anyway, I'm just giving you a status report, what's going on. Any questions?
Yeah, Mike, it says this administrative budget is what the cities are charging to administer the
other, like us and all the various government agencies, they're still taking that money away from them.
So this number, when you see, for the city of Camarillo, $65,000, where does that $65,000 is spread among the various special districts that are?
Well, it's all the various government agencies. That includes school districts, that includes the county, the water districts, us, the health district, and all those people. So all the government agencies that are making money off the property tax from the redevelopment agency, which is on the south side of the 101 there, the old Ventura, Old Town essentially, going down to the factory outlet mall and all that stuff. So all those properties in there, every government agency that's receiving something from the property taxes have to help in the city. So that $65,500 they're requesting for their budget, part of that's their own money too. So they're putting part of their own property tax money into this. But most of this, theirs is like only 8% of the whole bill. But
so the $65,000 is spread among all these entities, not
right.
Yeah. Okay. All right.
Yeah.
Any other questions? Okay, Mike, Santa Monica.
Oh, yeah, briefly, I already talked about this at one of our other meetings, but 2 weeks ago I attended our last meeting and mentioned that the federal government Congress has now funded the federal people for all their fire damage up here in the Santa Monica Mountains. So their $30 million came down from Congress for them to start doing all their work on rebuilding all their stuff. And the state government has funded part of the stuff for the state parks people. And they're starting to do work, but they still got more funding coming down from Sacramento they need.
And we enjoyed listening to Mr. Edmonds last night speak at the annual meeting. So, standing committees, finance, Mark?
Yeah, that's me. we got the presentation. It's time for the annual CalPERS nightmare. And CalPERS has revised its is the projector coming awake, or there we go. CalPERS has revised its annual report for 2018 and 2019. And there's the cover of it, showing it ends fiscal year June 30, 2019. However, the data I'm going to show you is only relevant through June 30th, 2018. Because when they talk about unfunded liability, they're always at least a year and a half behind. And you'll notice that on this report here, there is no date. There's no press release announcing this report is available. You'll have to use the search tool on the CalPERS website to find this report. I knew how to find it because I spent a lot of time there digging for it. And it's full of some really interesting numbers. The first one is the where we stand, and I don't know if the people on TV can read any of this because this is really too small, but basically they have $373 billion worth of assets, which is as of when the report was done just a couple months ago. So they do a really cool job of telling you the good numbers that are current, but only reporting the actual recorded data, a year and a half behind. So we kind of go back and forth between current stuff. And through June 30th of 2019, the portfolio earned 6.7%. Now, those of you that know all about this stuff know that the forecast for the system is 7%. So you say, oh, great, we're only 0.3 short. Well, that's great, except that they're short like almost half. They need almost half as much more money in the fund because they're so underfunded. So 6.7 actually doesn't come close to getting the investment earnings that are needed. It's a huge system. There's 2 million people being funded by this system. 38% of them are school employees, 31% of them state employees, and 31% of them are public agencies like us. And it covers 2,890 different agencies. The health number is 1.5 million people on their health care plans, including all of us. And their funded status through 2018 is 70.2%. That is a whopping gain of 0.1% from the year before. So we only have to wait 300 years to get back to fully funded status at the current progress, which is unfortunate because there's 712,000 people that are beneficiaries of this plan, and they're paying out $24.2 billion a year. And in last year, that amount they paid out actually increased by $1.6 billion because, not surprisingly, their workforce is aging out and a lot of people are hitting the retirement button early. So the amount of money they're actually spending on benefits is rising pretty fast. Now here's the actual chart, and you saw this last year, so it's a little familiar, but it's a wall of data. First of all, it's the data for the Public Employees Retirement Fund, the PERF. There's separate funds for judges, there's separate funds for legislators, and not surprisingly, those funds are much better funded than the ones that we're covered in. But this is all the data for the PERF, and as you can see, the latest data is through 6/30/18. Now the first column shows for the 10-year period how much money was actually in the fund, the assets of the fund. And as you recall, I just said that it now has 363 as of the first, the 363 billion. 10 years ago, 2009, we had 245 billion. And the amount that they actually had committed to paying, the benefits that had already been earned, was 294 billion. So we were unfunded by the 49,078 there. Skip forward 10 years, and you can see that the value of the assets, it rose nicely. It went from 326 billion to 354. But look at the next column, the accrued liability. Look how it grew. It went from 465 billion to 505 billion. So that's a growth of $40 billion in liability in one calendar year. And as a result, they fell behind another $12 billion. And then here's the funded ratio. And as you can see, 10 years ago, when we had the big stock market crash of 2009, we still had 83% of the assets needed to cover, and it's been dwindling down. And despite, now 3 years of unfunded liability payments, we're going nowhere fast. Down at, a 0.1% gain up to 70.2. And here's the thing that I want, it's really important for everyone to remember, because the payroll that's covered here, look at the current payroll, it's only $54 billion. There's no way we can expect the employees to make a significant dent in this unfunded liability. The numbers are simply out of control. The payroll only grew $2 billion in a year, but the liability grew $40 billion. And as you can see, that percentage in the right column, it keeps marching upward, because as the numbers get bigger, it just gets harder and harder to catch it up. So having $354 billion or $373, as they're claiming on their website as of today, it sounds great, but the reality is they need about 42% more money to pay the current obligations. So here's how it affects the district itself, and how our impact and was mentioned in the annual report today about, you can see how rapidly those numbers are growing, and they're going to keep growing. This is just our unfunded liability payments. That's not the amount that the employees are contributing out of every paycheck, that we're contributing on their behalf out of every paycheck. This is just the unfunded liability payments. And as you saw, the total liability keeps growing. The good news is, from our perspective, we're in much better shape than most cities are. By 2024, Bloomberg estimates that the average California city will be paying 54 cents towards retirement benefits for every dollar of payroll that they have. We're nowhere near those sort of numbers. So the numbers are significant, and having to find an extra 50 grand each year and 60 and 70 and on up is going to be challenging, but get used to it, because we're going nowhere fast at the state level. Any questions?
I just wanted to make the note, thank you very much, Mark, for doing all this. And I think it's important for everybody, including our employees, to know what's going on. But also, what's also scary to me, this is when our stock market is doing well.
Yeah, right.
I mean,
Yeah,
we're not,
yes.
this is not.
10 years of record returns.
Yeah, this is when our stock market has record returns and doing well and everything else, and we're still treading water. I mean, we're not making much headway. And imagine if we actually had a problem. So, and it could.
Well, we have a problem. I mean, we have a problem. This data, I found this on page 124.
Yeah.
Of a 250-page report. I mean, they're just not talking about this. They're reporting it out, as apparently the law requires, but no one's talking about it. You can't find a press release on the issuance of this Choose report. It's just like a non-conversation. But here's the numbers. Scary stuff. That's it. See you next year.
Well, I see those articles just like you do, and I just cringe every time I read an article that's got anything to do with CalPERS, so. And also, now that you're on the feedback committee for CalPERS, why,
It's,
Dylan
yeah.
will appreciate your comments, so. Okay, liaison,
We have a meeting date coming up. It took us a month to get it, I think, right, with the city, but we have a date coming up on the calendar.
you have a date.
Yes.
Okay, all right. Long-range planning. Who's that? Neil?
No.
Bob?
It's me.
Hello?
Are you long-range planning? I know where you're going to be the next few months, but
Isn't that Mark and I?
yeah, that's why I looked over. It's like,
I can't remember if we had a meeting or not.
No, we
didn't we?
okay, all right,
We didn't?
no. You want to report on personnel? We did have a meeting.
I always let you do it.
I don't remember what we did.
I don't either.
Mary, would you help us?
Certainly. So we kind of set.
I'm sorry, I had so many meetings in January, I'm all.
So kind of set the agenda for the upcoming year
yeah,
of
the
all the
goals.
different stuff that we'll be looking at and policies and such. So first one was kind of a working agenda. We'll start setting further and coming back with personnel policies and such.
I'll start preparing to do the personnel.
Okay, would you? Okay, thank you, sir. I appreciate it.
Yeah, I always let you do it, so.
Well, but you were chair last time, so I was
know.
prepared.
You're
so-
right, things have changed.
Yeah.
I'm now on the bottom of the.
No, you're not. You never. This is equal grounds, guys. Policy, we did not meet, so I think that's.
I was going to say, I am on that committee, and I
You
remember-
are on that committee, and I'm going to let
very-
you.
I
I'm gonna
remember
let
very
you,
clearly that we did not meet.
Yeah, I'm going to let you be reporting on it. Okay, is that okay?
All right.
All right. Ad hoc, Mr. Malloy, Journey.
Well, we're still working on an extension to their contract, and it's proving a little thornier than we expected. We met, was it yesterday or day before yesterday? With, I think, their whole board, and we're narrowing down the issues, and I think we're going to come up with something that will work. We're working on a new contract that'll extend for up to a year and a half, and so that it'll carry us through the fiscal year, help us with our planning for next year, what the revenues are going to be. They haven't found a new location. They don't, I don't think they really have any expectation of moving out. I think that this is a really good arrangement for both of us, and they'll be able to work through all the issues and make sure we get everything documented so that both parties know what their responsibilities are and that no one's unhappy with the process as it goes on, and it'll be easier for everyone to understand what's going on, and that we get the return on the expenses of all the different things that we do and cover our side as well. So, but we're not done yet. So the goal is to meet a week, not the goal is, this next scheduled meeting is a week from Friday. A week from next Friday.
Yep.
Yeah. Next. I'm still thinking about my vacation next week. So, a week from next Friday, we're going to meet again. We're hopefully going to have the thing tied down, and that the committee can bless it and bring it to the board at our March meeting.
Okay. Ran Rancho?
No meetings.
And then at the last special meeting, we established a new ad hoc that Director Malloy and I will be on. We will be working with the Miracle League. And we'll be working on a date here very soon as to when we'll be meeting and things. So the foundation report, we met and kind of planning on making plans for our calendar to see how it will match up with the recreation calendar and to see what we're going to be able to do with losing Megan and things is we need to do some major planning and also getting the annual event into place. So we'll be meeting again in a couple weeks and we'll get everything out so that the next board meeting, why everybody will be able to see a calendar, hopefully. So, Mary, you are on for your GM's report.
Gotcha. Just a thank you for last night. It was a huge surprise, but what I would like to say is that without a board that is looking ahead and looking at the best interest, and then having a great staff who helped to plan all that, that wouldn't have been possible. So thank you all for your support through the last 5 years. A couple updates other than that. If you've not been to Springville Tennis Courts, I encourage you to go up there, all the LED lights. So we're starting to track that, so we'll have a better idea over the next couple months what it looks like for electricity. The other ones that have also been done is the Mission Oaks walkway lights. So if you haven't gone there, that's another good one to go look at. You can see that it illuminates. Once again, we'll be tracking that to see what that looks like. So for next year, probably proposing more LED lights so we can help save with electricity costs. So those are the two things that are in parks that are going on. Leo's already talked to you about the budget and where we're at with that. So as a reminder from the last one, and Megan should have sent something out, May 9th will be the first budget workshop. So just a reminder that, I know it's a little time out, but that'll be on everybody's calendar as well. So that's all I have for right now.
May 9th?
Correct.
Yeah, okay. All right. The next item is oral communications, informal items from board members or staff not requiring action. Anybody have anything? Neil, anything?
No, I just wanted to thank Director Malloy for his presentation again. He's done this a number of times over the years, and it's really informative. The only unfortunate thing is I wish this room was filled with people to hear it. And I hope there's a lot of people out there on the television world who are listening to that and recognizing what a serious problem this is for the people who live in the state and pay the taxes. And especially becomes a problem as the population of California is seeing an out-migration of the sort of the middle-income earners, the people who bear the burden of a lot of the taxes. It's going to be a big problem in the future. So thanks for keeping the spotlight on it. Thank you, Mark.
I have nothing, thank you.
Mark? No more presentations?
I was hoping that you would embarrass Mary by reading all of those nice things that were said about her last night, and
You know, I didn't bring it, but I sure would like to.
all of her great accomplishments. And
I would sure like to read it because it was very nice what was written about her, and I like embarrassing her, so, and she knows that. But let me tell you, I do it with all the heart that I have because she's a very deserving individual, and we're very, very happy to have her. So thank you again, Mary. Okay, and with that, we will adjourn.
Thank you.